the fabrics I've chosen for this, you've seen this already, but it's the Baby Basics from Michael Miller with a polka dot. I really love that one. It's 42-inch wide, and the Rosalinda collection, which is the lovely floral fabric. You want to go to page 6 in your instructions, and you want to find the length that you need for the size. Please go by height. So if your child is 53 inches or 134 centimeters tall, then you do want to have the 27 centimeters. And to get the volume with the fabric I've used in the skirt, I actually needed to cut my fabric for the skirt along the selvage instead of along the weft, which is what you would normally do. If your fabric was at least 54 inches or 140 centimeters wide, this fabric isn't. It is only 42 inches wide. So I needed to cut my skirt along the selvage, and in true style, I didn't read my own instructions very well, autopiloted and cut the skirt in 2 panels across the width of the fabric, and then I needed to add 2 panels, which of course is not very nice, because if you end up with a seam right in the center front, that's not going to look good. So make sure that you cut that along the selvage if you have a fabric that hasn't got that width. As you can see here, that's where I just turned my camera on and went. You don't want to do that unless your fabric has got the right width, and that's 140 centimeters or 150, and it is at least 54 to 57 inches wide. Then that's absolutely fine. The other thing about gauze fabric is that it literally disappears as you start to ruffle it. So when you pull your gather threads, and there's literally no gathers, when you make this in a quilting cotton, it will look like lots of gathers. It will look exactly like this even though you use less fabric. So be aware of that, and if you're working with gauze, I would definitely recommend that you make your panels 2 meters in length as well, so you have altogether 4 meters. It just looks so much nicer. The other thing I would say is cut the selvage off. I always think to myself, or have done a lot in the past, that I thought, oh well, it'll disappear in the seam allowance, and then I end up with a white strip because I haven't taken enough seam allowance or something like that. So I would suggest cut it off. Next, we're going to cut the circle out. So just pin that on. My lovely Rosalinda collection Michael Miller fabric. It's actually really, really lovely. The quality of these fabrics is grand, and we have the links for all of this in our fabric shop. So you can get these and use exactly what I'm using as well. So we're cutting that out, and I have got a little tip for you, because all summer we're going to do hacks for this. And it should be really obvious to everyone that you've got another pattern in this. You've got a circle skirt, right? Now, when you cut the center out, you want to do it just like filleting fish. You put your scissor fairly flat on the table and then just cut all the way around. And that's those 2 pieces. Of course, you do have a layout plan in your instructions, but to be fair, who actually uses that? You do that maybe when you start sewing. But if you're cutting into your stash and you've got some pieces and you think, oh, just got enough for the waistband, then of course you just cut it out so you don't waste any fabric. The waistband for the back is cut on the fold. You can see that here. And then the little bit for the front is going to fit right in the center, and we only need that once. So you're going to cut that out too. Now, because it doesn't have elastic in it, it will need some strengthening, and so we're going to put some Vilene on it, some iron-on interfacing. And since this is 2020 and we're all at home working from home, and Joann's is shut at the moment and deliveries take 2 weeks, I have used my roll of Vilene. I like that stuff actually, but it's quite thick, and therefore I didn't interface a whole lot, just on one side, which is absolutely fine. So I just cut myself 2 strips to go on there from the center downwards, and you don't have to have Vilene in the seam allowance. In fact, it makes it less thick if you don't, so that's perfect. So just need to iron that on to get started. The last thing to cut is the ties. The ties are just right length really, but I wanted them a bit longer because I wanted it to wrap around back to the front and then have a tie on the side. And so I made mine a little bit longer than 90 centimeters. With gauze fabric, because it's two fabrics essentially woven together, and I didn't want the ties to be like really thick and looking homemade, so I pulled it apart and I thought, I'm not sure about this, but actually it worked really well. You will lose one line of thread, which gives you a little bit of a line on the fabric, but once I've ironed that and put them together, it is truly invisible. So that's a really good trick. Now we're also going to see what the length of the elastic is, but you should go by the waist measurement. So the height here really doesn't matter. Check what waist your child has and then cut the length for that for your waistband, so it doesn't come out way too big. Still, you'll have to check it, but it will be much better fit from the start. I'm cutting down my extra wide 5 centimeter elastic to 4 centimeters because I think it's way nicer, and you can also use 3 centimeter width elastic. Don't worry too much about the width of the elastic because the waistband is folded under, of course, and the important thing is that you have movement room, so you can have up to 1 centimeter movement room. So if you wanted to top stitch your waistband all the way around, it would even be better to have the elastic only 3 centimeters wide. So use what you have and just reduce the waistband if necessary. Now we're ready to start sewing, and we're going to start with the ties in the next chapter. See you there.